Good morning, everyone. Let's make a start because, unfortunately, I'm Peter Eckersall, and it's my pleasure to chair this session. We have two speakers presenting on, I think, one of the most important topics of this conference, which is the question of AI in relation to climate change. A lot of us are familiar with the reports about the massive amounts of energy that AI needs in order to operate. We see images, dystopian images of, data farms that exist in places like the middle of Texas where it's already 50 degrees and they're generating a huge amount of heat and energy and consuming a lot of energy and resources from those places that are already deficient. So that's just yet one example. We hear dystopian images of companies like Google reinvesting in nuclear power. Certainly in my own country where I come from, Australia, there's a conservative push to re-legislate nuclear power, which has come out of nowhere. It's a kind of redneck kind of attempt to introduce a new strain into politics, but it's been taken seriously by the tech industry because it's one way that they could possibly sort of fund their technological future. So we're going to explore those ideas in these two papers, AI, Climate Change and Posthumanism. As I said, my name is Peter Eckersall. I'm a professor in the Theatre and Performance program here at the Graduate Centre and one of the people working on this conference with Helen and other colleagues. We'll be going for the next hour, actually, because I actually leave at 12:30. I've got a meeting, so I will be finishing on time. So we have two speakers, and I'll introduce them both up the front. The first one is Maedeh Norouzi, who is a PhD student in Art and Science at the Université Libre of Brussels, Department of Philosophy, and they're a visiting scholar at the Graduate Centre in the philosophy program. They'll be coming in on Zoom in just a minute. Welcome from, I guess you're in Brussels at the moment. Our second speaker will be Chloe Smolarski, who's a filmmaker and multimedia artist who's worked and studied and exhibited in Paris, Berlin, Barcelona, and New York, among others. We were just talking about how she's teaching at Pratt and also City Tech, so two very interesting programs doing work in this field. And she lives and works in New York while teaching media and art. So Maedeh, apologies if I mispronounce your name, but would you like to start us off with your presentation, please?
Okay, thank you very much. Hello, everyone, and it's a pleasure to be here today. I wish I could be there with you in person, but actually I'm in France. So I will just, can you see my screen share?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Okay, yes, my name is Maedeh Norouzi. I'm a PhD student in Art and Science of Art at the University of Brussels. And my academic work bridge the philosophy department and the Royal Academy of Fine Arts in Brussels, reflecting my deep engagement with generative art. This approach allows me to explore and integrate a wide variety of materials and concepts, creating a rich interdisciplinary dialogue within my artistic practice. And let's dive into three distinct approaches to contemporary art that are related to AI. And starting with the critical approach, rooted in the Frankfurt School's critical theory, and this perspective view AI not as a neutral tool, but as a product of late-stage capitalism. Artists and thinkers critique how AI serves capitalist goals like profit maximization, privacy erosion, and labor dehumanization. By using AI in their works, they highlight issues of surveillance and automation, questioning AI's role within the capitalistic system. And next, algorithmic neo-pop approach draws on pop art and postmodern theory, especially Baudrillard's idea of the image, copy, and simulacrum. This playful, visually driven style explores the blurred line between real and virtual. Artists here embrace AI's creative potential, merging human and machine-made elements to reflect our hyperreal media-driven reality. And finally, the metamorphic approach is based on neo-vitalism, which seeks to enchant nature alongside technology. And here, AI is seen as part of an ecological system that includes organic and inorganic life. Artists using this approach treat as AI as a co-creative force, exploring how it complements and even integrates to natural processes, and deepening our connection between technology and natural world. So my project seeks to harness AI to explore the Anthropocene, a pivotal era marked by humanity's significant environmental impact. I argue that AI offers a unique perspective, a new lens through which we can experience and understand the Anthropocene. In this context, AI serves both as a tool and a catalyst for new artistic expressions. By bridging the past and present, I aim to understand the role of AI not only as a medium, but also as a transformative force in art. And my thesis provides insights that dwell at the intersection of art, AI, and the Anthropocene, all viewed through the lens of the sublime. In an era dominated by rapid technological advancement and significant environmental changes, this element converge to shape new artistic expressions and philosophical discussions. And my research is anchored by the hypothesis that AI can uniquely represent the Anthropocene as a sublime event. This capability of AI to process and visualize vast environmental data not only deepens our understanding of this critical epoch, but also influences how we perceive and react these awe-inspiring changes. Now let's briefly discuss what the Anthropocene is, as it's important to understand the concept for the next question, why I use AI in my artworks to represent the Anthropocene. In 2000, chemist Paul Crutzen introduced the term Anthropocene to define an era where human activities, especially CO2 emissions, have become the primary force driving planetary changes. This concept quickly gained significance, reshaping field across both social and natural sciences and challenging their traditional boundaries. Geologists see the Anthropocene through vast timescales, marking a human impact on Earth's layers, while historians use it as a toolkit to examine cultural shift. Some even proposing capitalocene to tie environmental damage to capitalism rise. And scholars argue the Anthropocene pushes us to rethink division between nature and society, moving beyond state-focused approaches to reshape political and scientific and ecological boundaries. This concept calls us to see ourselves not just as observer, but as active agents, bringing responsibility to care for the planet. And the Anthropocene also inspired the art, where creativity and technology intersects to explore humanity's environmental impact. Artists, including myself, use tools like AI to capture and critique this area unique beauty and challenges. Through my work, I blend classical romantic themes with modern technologies to express the sublime complexity of our impact on the nature world. And it's a way of using art to engage with and critically reflect on our present, exploring both the promise and the risk of human influence on the planet. And this question, which is an important question in my thesis, why AI became the chosen medium for my artistic project. And choosing AI as the primary medium for my artistic work, I'm guided by its unique position within the Anthropocene, where technology and environment intersect. AI's data processing power and global integration provide a profound way to explore these complexities. Marshall McLuhan's idea that the medium is the message resonates here. AI itself carries meaning, shaping how we perceive art and reflecting the governance of technology in our world. And for me, AI is more than a tool. It's a collaborator, blurring the line between creator and medium. And this fusion of human activity and Earth's processes suggests that the boundary between natural and artificial is melting, and positioning the Earth itself as an active participant in creation. Through my work, I hope to add to the dialogue on art's role in our rapidly evolving society. And my project is a testament to art's enduring power to engage, challenge, and inspire, especially during times of ecological and technological transformation. When we talk about sublime in my work, the concept of the sublime, historically tied to awe, wonder, and terror, takes on new significance in the context of AI. Uncertainty of where this technology might lead, combined with the existential concerns of those investing heavily in its development, reflects a modern sense of the sublime, something both astonishing and potentially dangerous. My work explored this ambivalence using AI to create generative pieces that evoke both wonder and contemplation, much like the sublime experience in art and the nature. And the tension between AI's limitless potential and its unpredictable future becomes the modern embodiment of the sublime, questioning our place in the world increasingly shaped by digital forces. In AI art, including my work, the sublime is linked to the awe and tension surrounding technology and AI, just as the sublime in philosophy evokes feeling of confronting forces beyond our control. And AI art mirrors this experience with the vast complexity of algorithm and unpredictability of machine autonomy. And my work explores this intersection of technology and human imagination, reflecting our relationship with AI through a mix of fascination and fear. And this resonates with the traditional sublime, where humans are drawn to yet unsettled by greater forces. And in the Anthropocene, AI art encourages reflection on our role and impact, pushing us to engage with both the awe and ethical dilemmas of powerful technologies. And by highlighting AI's overwhelming outputs, we are challenged to reconsider art's roles in addressing our technological footprint within the Anthropocene. And through my creative process and the philosophical foundation behind my work, one project I especially like to discuss, which was showcased in Brussels and in France, called Circumposa. The term for circumposa refers to environmental elements like atmosphere, climate, and shelter. This project continues in the spirit of Romantic tradition and more specifically, its neo-Romantic evolution. This representation capture a sense of romantic melancholy, not only through a through physical ruins, but also through the collapse of human ambitions and our universal vulnerability. At the same time, they reveal a certain beauty visible in light's ability to transform and transcend. It suggests that even amidst decline and desolation, there lies a profound depth, a core element of romantic aesthetic. In my work, the concept of a nature back is a strong declaration that despite the overpowering forces of industrial progress, the human spirit still longs for a connection to nature. This yearning contrasts sharply with the mechanical, denatured landscapes of modernity. And in my art, I explore the Anthropocene landscape as a complex space where human impact on the environment is both visible and emotionally powerful. The Anthropocene serves as a backdrop for examining themes of destruction, resilience, and the sublime. And my work moved beyond traditional landscape, focusing on altered environments that reflect our ongoing relationship with nature, places where technology and industry and climate change leave a permanent imprint. These landscapes are infused with neo-romantic themes of awe, wonder, and introspection, revealing the psychological and emotional impact of living within this epoch. By merging these elements with AI, I invite viewers to confront the layered beauty and devastation of the Anthropocene, inspiring a renewed connection with the environment while reflecting on our shared responsibility for this future. And in my work Circumfosa, I used DALL-E 2 and this machine and this AI is not now accessible. And this artificial neural network operates through statistical induction, where large quantities of information allow the software to learn and produce similar results. And the resemblance between outputs and the original data is shaped by the relationship between homogenizing, induction, and variation. The data used by this system is inherently retrospective. It consists of past information. Storing information preserves what has already happened, and yet these traces of the past influence what can happen next, generating new data that is not a direct repetition of the past, but maintains a resemblance to it. And the software expands a database, pushing patterns beyond what has previously occurred, while still maintaining a connection to its origin. In the context of Anthropocene, machines drawing on past and present data create visions of the future, often depicting a devastated environment devoid of humans. And in my work, unlike many a depiction of extinction where humanity narrates its own end, I intentionally, in this series, omit human presence. I challenge the idea of separation, human and non-human elements, as we approach a future where the boundaries between nature, culture, humanity, and artificiality are dissolving. And here is my second project, currently in progress. It's titled Homo sapiens. When we talk about machines replacing human intelligence, we often picture a gradual process where we as a Homo sapiens become obsolete, stuck with our Paleolithic brains and emotions, while machines continuously improve. And Gunther Anders described this as a Promethean shame, the notion that machines surpass us, always evolving while we remain the same. In my exhibit, Homo sapiens, I explore the disruption humanity has inflicted on nature. This work highlights the transformation of the natural into the unnatural through altered skin tones, reshaped structure, and synthetic materials like plastic and viscose dyes. The exhibit emphasizes themes of destruction and waste, inviting reflection on the environmental cost of human activity. The figures portrayed here are not improved beings of transhumanist dream. Rather, they appear void and inert, emphasizing the stark reality of the Anthropocene, where technological progress has not led to human betterment, but a forceful emptiness. This calls for a critical reassessment of our trajectory in this unparalleled geological era. Within Homo sapiens, we navigate the complex interplay between human activities and the Earth, applying AI to reinterpret archival images, a process akin to a statistical dreaming. This infused the visual with both sadness and joy, invoking the content sublime and marking a critical evolution in how we perceive reality, importance the crucial role of human insight and creativity. Today, Homo sapiens, our species, stands at the center of environmental discussions, distinguished by our unmatched intellectual and creative abilities, such as upright walking, dexterity, complex language, and problem solving. These traits have allowed us to dramatically reshape Earth's landscape and ecosystem, leading to urban development and complex society. And in this image shows a large pipeline instructions site with a vivid, almost surreal appearance. The pipeline itself is painted with bright, eddying colors that stand out against the more muted natural and industrial surroundings. Let's set in a landscape that appears to be undergoing seasonal transition, with patches of snow suggesting cold weather, reminds of the last snowfall in global warming, just some stain on the snow. And the relationship with Anthropocene and AI can be seen in the environmental impact at the technological aspect of the scene. The construction of such large pipeline reflects humanity's significant power on the earth, and altering landscapes and potentially affecting ecosystems. The striking colors of the pipeline could be understood as a metaphor for the colorful and complex nature of AI itself, something human-made that stands out and impacts the environment it is in. And continuing with this project, there is Antro Design, an ongoing series within the Homo sapiens project. Together, these images explore the nuanced state of human existence at a time when the lines between organic and synthetic are blurring. They provoke thought on our dependency on an integration into technological systems, while also questioning the essence of human identity and expression in an area defined by our own deep impact on the planet and our complex dance with the machines we have created. And that includes my presentation. Thank you for listening, and I welcome for any question or feedback.
Well, thank you very much for that presentation, which in some ways I think connected to the idea yesterday about technocratic infrastructures that was introduced in the first panel, and also this idea of a kind of presence of AI as a sublime atmosphere, I think is something that is very powerful for us to think about in relation to not just visual art, but also that idea comes up in performance quite often. And it's something that I think we could take into our conversation after the second presentation. But now we'll hear from Chloe, who will take us into a talk about her work. So please, the floor is yours.
All right, so our title moved, but we're just gonna keep it moving. So thanks, everyone. Thanks, Helen, for including me. Thanks, Peter, for facilitating this conversation. Thanks for the steady flow of coffee and all who make that possible. So what happens when climate change and AI are in a race and other stories, an associative romp through my brain? Field notes. October 22nd, 2024, the 2017 AI foundational research paper titled "Attention is All You Need," written by a team of Google scientists, opens with, "The dominant sequence transduction models are based on complex, recurrent, convolutional neural networks that include an encoder and a decoder. The best performing models also connect the encoder and decoder through an attention mechanism. We propose a new simple network architecture, the transformer, based solely on attention mechanism." The title, the title is taken from a 1967 Beatles song, "All You Need Is Love." Earlier Beatles songs were often written in the second person, leading to a sense of embodied immersion, emotional frenzy, a heightened sense of being. As political, social, and cultural movements emerged, civil rights, peace movements, reproductive rights, class analysis, the restructuring of the family unit, and the feedback loops of cybernetics, attention was shifting, and John Lennon began to write in the third person. This presentation is going to use attention as a core metaphor. Our attention can be bent and refracted like light bouncing off of a prism. It can be bought and guided, deliberately obfuscated, manipulated, and sometimes even by metaphors. The metaphors we use to explain, to give shape to an abstract idea can, in and of themselves, be confused with reality. Gillian Weiss in Common Cyborg pushes back on Donna Haraway's central argument in her 1984 feminist Marxist text, A Cyborg Manifesto, which claimed that cyborg imagery can suggest a way out of the maze of dualism in which we explained our bodies and our tools to ourselves. Weiss argues that this metaphor has led to the erasure of disabled people who actually integrate technology into their biology in order to live. I now assign Common Cyborg to my students rather than a cyborg manifesto. It's grounded, tangible, tethered to lived experience. In Disordered Attention, How We Look at Art and Performance Today, Claire Bishop is also thinking through attention as she names and historicizes contemporary art practices. Arguing against binary construction of attention and distraction, she chronicles the emergence of what she calls disordered attention in relation to digital technology. In the first essay, Information Overload, Bishop maps specific research-based art practices, citing work from Renee Green, Mario Garcia Torres, Wolfgang Tillman, and Walid Rad, to name a few. To a framework that includes the characteristics of an evolving internet, from the refusal of the master narrative to skimming and sampling, Bishop guides our attention to our collective experiences in navigating an internet now of the past, and how these innate mechanisms are reflected in research-based art practices. As I read, highlighting my Kindle book, I wonder in what ways the recent integration of AI into common browsers, such as Chrome and Bing, will continue to influence knowledge production in emerging art practices. But I digress. The attention mechanism is a key component of the transformer models, a network architecture that allows it, the attention mechanism, to focus on different parts of the input sequence when generating an output. It does this by assigning different weights, values determined in training sets, to each token, a basic unit of information, in the input sequence, determining how much attention each token should receive relative to others. In order to fundamentally understand how the attention mechanism and the transformer function, you need to know linear algebra, calculus, statistics, which admittedly I barely do. However, what I do understand is when we talk about artificial intelligence, we are essentially talking about math. In Towards a Philosophy of Photography, Willem Flusser describes the thought process of the apparatus, which includes, but is not limited to, the computer, as thinking expressed in numbers. However, when applying this definition to our current digital landscape, and what is left out is the numbers are computing continuously in data centers that have physical addresses. Field notes, October 14th, 2024. I rode my bike several days ago on an unseasonably warm day to the H5 data center, which is located at 325 Hudson Street. Coincidentally, after docking my city bike many blocks away, I had stared in awe at the slightly recessed Art Deco Western Union building, vertical lines leading to a single point in the sky. It had at once trafficked telegraphs, but now I would learn was a co-location center, renting racks, cooling systems, and low latency located just a few blocks from my final destination, H5 data center. When I arrived at the data center, I was struck by how unassuming the building is. Horizontal lines, windowless windows. The building was hidden in plain sight and only identifiable by its address on the wall, 325 HUD, and a bit lower, Sun. The shadows were harsh as people walked by. Others sat on benches facing the wall, eating salad from the to-go restaurant Just Salad, located on the ground floor. I circled the block, taking photos of details, first of ducks, Siamese connections, giving way to revolving doors, reflecting its surroundings more readily than offering a view of the interior. Then stoops adorned with gourds, boarded entrances, French boutique condos across from warehouse loading docks, a judo school, storefront windows papered with photos of soda, eggs, and soup. The H5 data center is privately owned by Josh Sims, who added this particular facility to his portfolio in 2021, a portfolio which now across many states includes over 3 million square feet of data center space, H5 is a hyperscale data center provider, which means in addition to racks, cooling systems, and security, it offers seamless integration to the three biggest cloud services: Google Cloud Services, Microsoft Azure, and Amazon Web Services. Stephen Gonzalez Montserrat, cloud anthropologist, draws on his ethnographic work to peek under the invisibility cloak shrouding the cloud. He writes, "But just as the clouds above us, however formless and ethereal they may appear, the cloud of the digital is also relentlessly material. We must attend," he adds, "to its material flows of electricity, water, air, heat, metals, minerals." Due to many variables, the bottom line is an average AI-powered query uses more than 10 times the amount of energy as a standard Google search. Due to many variables, it remains difficult to accurately predict the future energy footprint of data centers. Alex DeVries, founder of DigiEconomist, whose research played a role in the global discussion surrounding blockchain technology and sustainability, concludes in an article published in Jewel that it would be advisable for developers not only to focus on optimizing AI, but also to critically consider the necessity of using AI in the first place, and recommends that regulators introduce environmental disclosure requirements across the AI supply chain. While writing the above paragraph, in which I give a brief description of hyperscale data center providers, I Googled the phrase co-location data center. Rather than a Wikipedia entry, a dictionary definition, or even a sponsored ad, the first response to my query was from Search Labs AI Overview. The output was divided into bullet points, each followed by a link icon: space, services, benefits, flexibility. When the pre-trained AI focuses my attention on its algorithm, definition of a co-location data center, it does so at the expense of other information. I am made acutely aware of how it is shaping and organizing my thoughts. It is training me how to think about co-location data centers: space, services, benefits, flexibility. I scroll down the page and nowhere do I learn about noise pollution, fire hazards, water usage, or how much energy they consume. We never did ask for AI-enhanced Google searches. As they say, follow the money. The International Energy IEA recently stated investment in new data centers has surged over the past 2 years, driven by growing digitization and the uptake of artificial intelligence, which is expected to continue accelerating. The New York Times reported Google, Amazon, and Microsoft are investing heavily in nuclear energy, specifically small modular reactors, which have not as of yet been successfully manufactured in the US. Microsoft, whose use of electricity has doubled since 2019, has agreed to buy as much power as it can from the company Constellation, who is restarting one of the 3 Mile Island's nuclear generating stations, which will now be called Crane Clean Energy Center. Field notes, October 5th, 2024. On September 23rd, 2024, Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI, writes a blog post, names it the intelligence age. Is he naming an era? Is he following in the footsteps of colonizers, naming to claim? Behind the title is an expressionist landscape. This article, widely circulated, written in 5th grade prose, gleefully skips around the ages, zooming out and then in to a grain of melted sand, only to jump forward and then backtrack a few hundred years. He promises endless intelligence, solutions to everything, health, and escapism in the form of space colonies. But perhaps most prominent is the hollow promise of distributed wealth. He writes, "I believe the future is going to be so bright that no one can do it justice by trying to write about it now. A defining characteristic of the intelligence age will be massive prosperity. The only evidence he attempts to give to account for this endless progress is the predictability of scale, more data, more resources. Is his narrative intentionally distracting us as it shifts our attention away from the realities of today, which include the very real possibility of reaching a tipping point in our Earth systems in the next 5 to 6 years?" A little over a week later, on October 2nd, 2024, Sam Altman secured another $6.6 billion from the venture capital investors. Investments are contingent on OpenAI undergoing a corporate for-profit restructuring, which also will grant Altman equity in the erstwhile nonprofit. The last part of my presentation, I promise it's brief, builds on When Home Leaves You, immersive oral histories of climate change and adaptation, an immersive archive and multimedia installation created and produced by me and Tasha Darbus from Pace University. I will experiment with how we can combine old technologies, oral histories, and new technologies, artificial intelligence, to further understand the moment we're living in. Field notes, October 24th, 2024. The Swale House on Governor's Island, a decommissioned military base, and for ages prior, a place where Indigenous people harvested nuts, is now an outpost for New York cultural institutions, the headquarters for the forthcoming climate exchange, and home for a new crop of pollinators. Our installation at Swale this summer featured motion-triggered excerpts from 4 audio interviews: Stephen Holler, Alaska; Malik Haider Ali, Pakistan; Susan Kinney, Nicaragua; and Florencia Chang, Agenda, Brooklyn, who each draw on diverse strategies to address climate change, inequality, and social justice in their communities. Not unlike Altman, we too imagined a future as a means of radical listening. The public is invited to explore concepts of place, local context, adaptation, and the complex relationship between geopolitical systems and personal experience. Field notes, October 25th, 2024. We enter the next phase of When Home Leaves You and begin thinking towards the development of an interdisciplinary research-based art model that combines oral history, multimedia art practices, and emerging technologies to further understand the lived experiences of those at the forefront of climate change adaptation. As we explore the possible directions our project can take, I begin to tinker with using Scholar GPT as a qualitative research tool. I start by importing the above 4 now de-identified interviews and loosely follow an unsupervised inductive process. I ask Scholar GPT, what can we learn about climate change adaptation by comparing the interviews? After a dialogue with Scholar GPT, it concludes, we learn that climate change adaptation is a multifaceted process requiring local knowledge, community engagement, ecosystem restoration, technological innovation, and attention to social economic inequalities. Successful adaptation strategies must be context-specific, combining traditional wisdom and modern solutions, and addressing the cultural and spiritual dimensions of communities. The thread connecting data collection, interviewing, and data processing, prompting GPT scholars, is dialogical by nature. Several days later, I ask the AI to create a pie chart visualizing how people are motivated to address climate change and make an impact on their communities. In this case, it is not the result that interests me. In fact, they fall flat. But what captures my imagination is the symbiotic interplay, the dynamic aspect of interactive storytelling, the element of surprise. The game I play with artificial intelligence is what delights, not the product. Expanding on the concept of oral history as a means of dialogic meaning making and understanding conversation as a site of knowledge production, I think that this synergy, this type of meaning making, is surely also possible with objects that think with numbers. I'm going to end on this last note as we collectively experience the effects of environmental degradations and continue to co-create with our AIs. We must learn to see, to focus our attention on what's grounded and what's real. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a really lovely paper. I really appreciate the way in which you approach the topic from these various perspectives. The field reports, I think, are deeply fascinating, and it was almost like a kind of performance ethnography of your engagement with the kind of crisis of climate change and in relation to the reality of the AI's consumption of resources and creating the climate crisis as well. So looking at both the papers, I was really struck by the presence of artistic practice as a way of interrogating the experience of climate change and its use of resources in that way. The first paper gave us some very powerful sort of atmospheric, almost affective kind of responses to the AI crisis, while the second paper gave us some very practical, embodied understandings of not just AI as a kind of general phenomena, but really the way that AI exists in our city and in our everyday world, and is there, you know, somewhat visible but somewhat invisible. And you know, in that sense, I think both papers were showing us how the keyword which of climate change and the kind of ecology, the ecology of thinking and of practice that goes around these kind of artworks that are being made here and these interventions was demonstrated, I think, in the papers, the thought processes, but the methodologies and you know, if I can use the word performance, because your paper was quite performative in a really good way. So thank you for both speakers. We now have 15 minutes for questions or comments or responses. So please, as always, use the microphone. And we have the first one over there, please. Thank you.
Hi, great presentation. Thank you. It was awesome. Got a question for you. What would you say if I told you that using AI to create an image or write a paper takes less energy, less CO2 emissions than all of the people around us? Don't listen to my presentation.
I'm not making an argument against AI. I'm as thrilled and as in love with technology as anyone else in this room. I do want to peel back some of the layers, and only one of them is the energy consumption, but not to be ignored. And I also do not want to say that the energy consumption of AI is equal to the last 200 years or cows, et cetera, et cetera.
There's a paper out of UC by Irvine, I think, that the carbon emissions of writing and illustrating are lower for AI than for humans. And it destroys the argument about computer.
excited to.
Focus on other areas for climate change.
I'm excited to listen to yours, and all of the above I would add, and to completely ignore AI consumption would also be a mistake.
I'll take the second question.
Louis, a
please.
brilliant presentation. Can I just say, I think it's really fascinating the questions you've raised, because I think it's very easy not to raise questions when there's a level of consensus around the benefits of something. It doesn't mean something isn't beneficial. And I thought your reference even on the benefits and quotes was very similar to the industrial age, and the claims made that the industrial age would result in mass equality, whereas in fact it resulted in mass inequality for most people. So can I just ask you, the H5 data centre, I'm fascinated by that. Have you been inside the data centre, and have you been given permission to have a look at everything that's going on there?
No, but I would like to, and I am trying.
We have a question here, a very, yeah.
Thank you both for very interesting papers and bodies of work. I think I want to ask sort of one broad question to you both, which is, what can art do with respect to climate change? I mean, should it try to do something, I guess? And then with Maedeh, I was sort of struck by your use of the term medium when you said that AI is your medium. And, you used McLuhan, who, of course, we all know medium is the massage. I think he's talking a lot about communication there, not necessarily about art mediums. When I hear medium in an art historical context, I think of Clement Greenberg. I also think of someone like Rosalind Krauss, who might have a closer conception, or might come to a closer conception of medium in her, I think it was from the late 90s, Post-Medium Condition book, where she says someone like Ed Ruscha, like medium could be this like reconstructed, more expansive concept, like Ed Ruscha, gas stations are a medium there or something. So is that like some way that AI turns into a medium? And I guess to tack on to that, do you ever share assuming you use prompts to make those images, do you share the text that you use to do that, or is that considered like an extraneous part of the work?
No, it's the writing. I write a prompt, and thank you for your question. I write a prompt, and yes, but for the Circumposer, I use DALL-E 2, but DALL-E 2 Spanish is not accessible now. And for Homo sapiens, it's DALL-E 3, and I write 1 page or 2 pages prompts with the details, and yes, it's writing and with the details and the perspective, or yes, something like that.
So we'll go to the two other parts of the question. Perhaps the reference to the used medium, I think, could be important to your paper, but it could also be a wider question, I think, about mediums and the way that they become visible in your work as well. Maybe it's a little bit abstract, maybe not, but also that wide provocative question, what can art do, I think is a question that we might come to as well. So would you, Maedeh, would you like to respond to that first, and then we'll hear from Chloe?
I don't know. For me, AI, it's not a medium because it's changed. Sometimes it's medium, sometimes it's collaborator, sometimes it's artifact, sometimes it's art. So I don't know exactly what is this when I use with AI, but I can. For me, would be medium. So, but it's my answer. I don't know. Maybe.
Chloe, would you like to maybe address the question of what you think, art is doing in this critical space?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question, and I do think that art has always and will continue to have a role in bringing up pertinent aspects of our culture. What I really think right now is good legislation. I mean, leave it there.
At the risk of intervening in the chair, I've have a lot of interest in this topic too, and from the field of performance studies, I could mention many interventions here, but one of them is the question of affect and the way that art deals with affect, and how people respond to climate is very much in relation to an emotional response. And so I think one of the many responses is this way in which performance makes visible experiences of affect. And in a way, I think that was what I was responding to Maedeh's paper very much in terms of it being an affective experience. Perhaps, rather than Marshall McLuhan, I was thinking of somebody like Tim Morton's hyperbodies as a kind of way in which there is a theorization between this immense experience of the technology of climate change and the human dimension in terms of a disturbance or a hyper body experience. So let's take it to another question. Yep. Is there any other questions from anybody before? I'm not trying to cut you off there. I just want to make sure that everybody has a chance to.
Chloe, you said you were interested about legislation. What would you legislate? What regulation would you put in place?
Let's go vote. But I'm not 100% prepared to just have this conversation in our last few minutes, and I'd love to bring this up with you, but
I think it's just the very possibility of there being a possibility for regulation. I think we have to begin there, because at the moment there is very little possibility for meaningful regulation, because for all sorts of reasons, partly the power of the tech industry, but partly also we're dealing with an ossified and completely out of touch legislature who if you think about my generation, and our relationship to technology, well, they're 10 years older than me. And they're running around with thinking the mobile phone is an exotic piece of technology. So how are they possibly going to understand the regulatory future? So that's also something I think that needs to be addressed. There's so many dimensions to this, but if we look at Europe, for example, their attempts to regulate the informational technologies are laudatory, if full of holes, but at least somebody's made an attempt. So, and then you look at, I work in Asia. I work on Japan, China. The way that China regulates tech industries is fascinating as a study about control power and surveillance. It's not all good, but the question that you can't regulate tech, look to China. Yeah.
Do we have time for
yeah,
another?
just a little bit tack on to that. Not so much in the question of legislation, but I do think we have a choice of how these technologies are used. I mean, these data centers in large are also processing all the data they've collected on us, and I'm cool, but like it's not that interesting actually, and it's used to resell various products. So why are we keeping this? Why is this running kind of on this internal loop? I think there are decisions that could be made so that we can still maintain the real exciting aspects of this technology. And don't get me wrong, right, when we're looking at climate change, I do think some of the answers are going to come from AI. I am not at all advocating for the opposite, but to just completely accept the way it's being used and the data that's being collected and protected and kind of on a perpetual is not the only way.
Final question.
Just a minor comment and question is just in terms of, as you were saying, I'm from a European state, in terms of legislation, it's not only legislation, but the consequences of legislation, such as taxation. And taxation is a very effective way to reintroduce some form of equality back into society. And that can be done very effectively where there's massive profits being made. And it's no skin off anyone's back, if you know what I mean, because essentially if they're making that much money and they're claiming it's for the good of society, well, therefore it just redistributes the wealth in a fair way and doesn't allow the negatives to predominate, but allows the positives. So I think that's something that's open to any society, you know.
In wrapping up, Maedeh, have you got any final comments or in response to this conversation? We're just going to close the session in a minute, so I just want to make sure that we've got everybody. Everybody has a chance to make some final comments.
No, thank you very much. Thank you, Peter and Helen. It was very good. Thank you.